Hi, this is Catherine Dubberly, the Answer Lady. Today, let's use circular knitting to create a cardigan band. This is the preferred method for Passaps, in my opinion, but anybody with a double bed machine of any kind can make use of it. I have to warn you that during the making of this movie, I misspoke concerning the front and the back beds on several occasions. You are looking at the back bed of the Passap. I am behind the front bed, and you can only see my hands. The back bed is equivalent to the main bed of a Japanese machine in the way we're using it. Unfortunately, I switched the terms on several occasions. I don't know what got into me, and I hope you'll forgive me. We will hold up our cardigan front to the needles and determine how many needles we're going to use by just gently letting it relax against the bed, and then choosing just a hair fewer. So that's how many needles we're going to use. And I'm going to bring up the same number on the back bed. Now, if I had the needles so they would oppose, they would hit, and we're going to use them all at once. So I have to rack a half turn so that now they'll pass each other. This is called half pitch on Japanese machines and handle down on Passaps. But it's important that you realize what's really going on is creating alternating needle positions. On this particular machine, stitch size 1.5 makes the best zigzag row. Black strippers are not good for this. They will make too much pressure. Switch to orange, or I'm going to use an orange and a blue. There's your zigging and zagging for the zigzag row. Now, CX and substantially raise the stitch size. I'm going to 4. 2 circular rows. CX, for those who don't know that, is a circular knitting position. Now I can rack so that the needles would hit and they directly oppose, because they're not all going to come out at the same time anymore. Doing the racking so they oppose means the edges of my band, which will be the top and bottom, will be neater. It's also time to change strippers if you're using a Passap, because now we're doing single bed work, and those first couple rows created enough room and ease for these to fit in. We leave this on circular settings, which is CX for the Passap, but I'm going up to the band size of stitch, which is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've knitted 8 rows, which is how long I want the band to be. However, I'm untangling some yarn while I talk. We really need 16 rows because only 4 have been knitted on each bed now. So here we go. That's my entire band. Now it's time to transfer all of the stitches to the back bed, or the main bed if you're using a regular Japanese machine. I'm using a double-eye needle, and I choose not to do them all in one place at the same time, but to get a few anchor stitches. The beginning and ending stitches are most difficult for me. They're the most likely to fall off, so I like to get them out of the way, and then one every so often down the length, so that if I drop anything, I have at least a point to pick it up from. If you've never transferred stitches before, watch closely. Hook the eyelet into the needle hook, bring the needle forward. With your hand, pull the needle backwards. Now the stitch is on the double eye tool, and you just flip it onto the opposing needle. So we are going to end up with 2 stitches on every needle on the main or back bed. Make sure they all settle nicely. If you have trouble with them jumping off, as will happen in some yarns, a little bit of weight on the band is nice. Even though Passaps will knit nicely without it, You cannot do double bed work on a Japanese machine without a little weight usually, so you'll probably already have some on. Those with Passaps may not, but you might wish to hang some now. Heel grips are a help, or I use my heavy forks, which I actually designed for sock knitting machines, but they work super on the Passaps as well, and I use them by choice now, even though I have heel grips. I teach you how to make those heavy forks in the book Cheap Tricks, which is available on my website, should you need such a thing. Now, as soon as we get these all on the front bed, we won't need the back bed or the river anymore. So we'll make sure that all of the needles are firmly placed out of work so they don't try to get into the act. I think they are, but to be safe. Now I'm going to enlarge to the garment stitch size, which is 6, and knit one row slowly because there are extra stitches on these needles. Okay, everything knitted off beautifully. Now I'm going to lower the bed. This is where Passaps knitters have it harder because our beds don't lower very far, but you can do it. Now it's time to hang our sweater front. What I'm trying to do is pick up just one whole column of stitches at the edge of the front. And I'm going to start at the ends and then simply divide my work or my front between my needles. Try to just get that one row of stitches, column of stitches. I said row, that was wrong. And gradually ease them all in as evenly as you can. This is so much easier than mathematically determining where they should fall, and they really don't have much choice but to line up in the best possible way as long as you keep dividing your ease. That one does not want to go where I want it to go. For example, if I were working the whole sweater front, I would have done this going between segments again and again. In this case, you can really see where they should go, so I didn't do it all that much. Alright, now the whole edge is hung. I am looking at the purl side. In this case, I want my knit side to be the right side of the sweater, and I want where I'm joining the band to be hidden on the inside of the sweater. But you can flip it and use it as a design feature. Now, a Passaps will not knit this off nicely. I'm not even going to try. On a Japanese machine, if you know your machine, you may decide that it will work. And I'm going to manually knit one large row using my fingertip on the hand that's pulling the needles to tell me when to stop pulling. Once it bumps that rail, I'm getting them as even as I can. That's when I'm going to stop. Sometimes you're going to have to manually close a latch. So far I haven't, but there I should have. See, did you see it try to catch the edge of the sweater? There it is again. You can do this. You can close a couple of latches and then 1, 2, pull them through the edge. That can make it a little bit faster. What we're doing is preparing to bind off, joining the band to the sweater and binding off the band and closing the band edge all at once. You don't actually have to use this bind off. I think it's efficient, but you could just chain around the gate pegs if you were knitting on a Japanese machine and you had them, or use any bind off that will retain some stretch and will do this job. But here I'm creating large stitches because I'm going to chain them together. If I thought that the machine would knit across all these layers, I could have knitted a stitch size 10 row. But often that doesn't create quite enough ease. Now I can break this yarn. Now the next step is to chain these big stitches I just made together. Pushing them down with my fingertips is evening them up a little bit. Here's my funky latch tool that I made while doing the book Cool Tools for Machine Knitters. If you wonder how to get one, you can learn there. And I'm going to chain these stitches together one by one. They don't have to come off the machine the instant you're done chaining. But when I feel like I don't have enough elbow room to work my fingertips in there, I guess that would be knuckle room, wouldn't it? I will pull some off, and I think I'm there now. Make sure that the latch tool has firm hold of its last stitch, and release the stitches from the needles. And that will create a little more ease for the next few stitches. Okay, here I am chaining and again. Or you can do this. It's a little more risky that you might drop a stitch, but it gives you room as you go. Lift your stitch off, pull it through the previous stitch, lift it off the needle, pull it through, and so on. I'm going to push these out of the way and go back to the safer method. I don't want to mess up while I'm trying to show you. Now you see why this row of stitches had to be extra large, because if I knitted it in any normal size, it would pull in the seam and distort the sweater front. I like some sort of bind off method here that creates a chain stitch, because the chain stitch is by nature stretchier and aligns itself better with the fabric itself than most other ways of binding off. Backstitch, for example, can do it, but I find it more difficult to gauge. Okay, we're looking at the wrong side, and if you do that very neatly, you can make it the right side and enjoy this as a design feature. And here's the right side. Notice how nicely these lined up. That is because we carefully did pick up a column of stitches. I'm going to let you compare the band I just made to the band I made while testing this. The one I just did is a little bit looser, and I think it looks better. It aligns with the fabric better. This is the one I did in front of you. This is the one I did previously. I used stitch size 4 here, and the fact that it pulled in and felt a little stiff next to the sweater made me decide that stitch size 5 was what I wanted. And the sweater fabric is stitch size 6. But you want a band not to droop, and especially when it gets the weights of the buttons in it, and to be a little bit firm by comparison with the sweater. So 1 stitch size down is typically correct, but it can be hardly any, or it can be 2 depending on the fabric. So it's an interesting way to do it, and I believe myself that for Passaps knitters this is easier than first hanging the edge of the sweater front, knitting the band, and rehanging, because reaching down in between here to do your rehanging is a pain in the neck. Hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.